easy to get, and it will improve your sleep quality and likely duration the first night you get it.
Go on.
Yep.
Welcome to Real Health with me, Carl Henry. Folks, in our increasingly digital lives, one part of our day is constantly getting squeezed, and that is our sleep. We're walking around permanently exhausted all the time, whether it's the phone in bed or a streaming service asking us what do we want to watch next in terms of one more episode. Our sleep is absolutely under pressure. Joining me to fill us in ways we can get better sleep in the sleep hostile world is health scientist, sleep coach, corporate speaker, and podcast host Tom Coleman. We've been trying to have him on for a very long time, and he's finally here in studio. Tom, welcome to the show. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me, Carl. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you in. People are exhausted, aren't they? The world that we live in, everyone's glued to tech. They are working really hard. They're stressed, and sleep is something that suffers every single time for most people around the country.
Absolutely. I see it, I describe it as people are lacking in the currencies of time, energy and presence. And there has to be a better way of living as far as I'm concerned. It's all of these things that we've crammed into our day, crammed into our lives. And many people I meet, they're guilt-ridden nearly because they feel like they're not doing it all right as such. So we've put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves. And for me, sleep is the barometer to see how well we're dealing with life, with stress.
I see it a lot with clients, right? So when they can't sleep, they do put themselves under a lot the pressure.
Yeah.
They build it into something almost bigger than it is I can't sleep, I can't sleep. And then funnily enough, they can sleep.
Yes, it's the narrative is so important with health, with sleep. I mean, I see it every day. I've worked with people for 10 years in the area of sleep. And what I see is that the more they focus on sleep and obsess about sleep, the more elusive it becomes. And it's like many things in health. What we need to do is to start focusing on our daily actions, on all of these small little things that inform our health and inform our sleep. And that's the key to getting good sleep. And being patient, because you can try something and, people will try it once or twice and say, it didn't work. Well, you wouldn't do that with the gym, would you? You wouldn't say, well, I've been one. It's not working, is it?
People try that too. They try that too, though.
Yeah.
It's the week. Oh, geez, I don't notice much difference after a week. You're like, this is a long-term project, lads.
That's right.
We're not focusing on that. Let's start with what sleep actually is, right? So what is it?
Well, it's a period of inactivity where adaptations are happening. And it's crucial for survival. I mean, there is debate out there. There is a research paper on what exactly is sleep and, how we have evolved. Did we evolve this way, etc. But it is a period where the brain and the body need to clean and make adaptations and find balance. And we look at all of the different things that are happening during sleep. From a physical perspective, we talk about our hormones, all of the hormones that are essential for us, for our survival, metabolic hormones, stress hormones, reproductive hormones, all of those hormones. Sleep is necessary, is absolutely vital for those. We look at immunity. Our immune system finds balance again. It mediates the stress response. We don't want an overactive or an underactive immune system. So again, crucial. And we make many crucial cells like T cells and mast cells while we sleep. And of course, our physical repairs, the muscles, the tissues, growth hormone. So if we talk about beauty, shall we say, in our skin and all that, growth hormone is the elixir of youth. And that's secreted during slow wave sleep.
What is the RDA then? Is it this magic? Because when we were on the train on the way up, I was like, okay, we're going to chat sleep today. And then once you automatically think sleep, all you go to is 8 hours in your head. You're like, everyone says that's the number. Is that the number?
For many of us, it's always a range, like anything in health. It's always a range. So experts will say 7 to 8 hours. Some people are fine on 6 hours. Some people require more. Some people require 9 hours or even more. I've worked with people who require more. It's one of the first questions to get right. How much sleep do I need? And again, let's not talk about per night. Let's talk about per week. Let's spread it out over the week, because the way we're living, maybe we build up some sleep debt 1 or 2 nights. Then we can maybe get extra cycles later in the week. So for many of us, it should be between 7 and 8, 7.5. Why is that? Because we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So we talk about
Even as adults.
yes. Oh, as
I know, like we
absolutely,
two
yeah.
children, and they absolutely sleep in cycles. I can
Yeah.
really set my watch to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that stays with you through through the life cycle.
Absolutely, yeah. They're referred to as ultradian cycles. They actually continue in the brain during the day, believe it or not. So these cycles, and why many people wake up, and we'll probably get to that, but why many people maybe wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever, they've had 2 or 3 cycles where they've had a lot of deep sleep. And now, as the night goes on, we get less and less deep sleep and more light sleep. And the sleep pressure in the brain is dropping, so it's normal enough for people to wake up. So the requirement is, I speak in 6 hours, 7.5 hours, 9 hours, is these 90-minute cycles. Now, we have genetics, which may predetermine us. So we've things called clock genes. We've 9 of those. So
Does that mean if your parents were good sleepers, you're more likely to be a good sleeper?
Yes,
Gives you a greater chance to be a good sleeper.
Yes, sleep duration, sleep depth, your chronotype. So, are you an early bird? Are you a night owl? So, genetically, these things can be passed on to us. So, there's a lot that goes into the sleep requirement. But the first thing is, how much sleep do I need per week? If you get that right, then you can plan back from that.
And of course, that can vary from, it's important for people listening in to it doesn't have to be the set amount every week. Like if you're training for a marathon, like something, whatever, you're going to need a bit more sleep, chances are, to recover.
Yeah, well, here's the interesting thing. I mean, what puts a person to sleep? It's sleep pressure. So how long I keep you awake. And that's a chemical called adenosine. Now, here's the really interesting thing, right? Here's why exercise is so good for sleep and deep sleep. How is adenosine produced in the human body? It's a byproduct of energy production, ATP production. So when we're very active, it's the brain is keeping score on how much sleep pressure to keep the person under that night. Isn't that just incredible? So if we get lots of regular exercise, and it actually lowers nighttime secretion of cortisol as well. So the tiredness molecule adenosine is really built up, and that holds us in sleep much longer. So if we're more physically active, we'll be in deeper sleep, and the requirement is more.
Chat to me about then the issues around lack of sleep. So for people who don't sleep well, now just off the cuff, you think, okay, well, you're tired, you make poor decisions, you drink more caffeine during the day, chances are. And that starts you almost into a cycle of not being able to sleep because you're having more caffeine. So like now, I had a terrible night's sleep last night. It was a really busy day, very stressful. Got home, very stressful. I was up early for the train, so I've had probably 3 cups of tea already, and they've been fairly large cups. Now, hopefully sleep later on. But yeah, the issues around poor sleep then, or if you're getting a lack of sleep, chat to us about those.
So what's informing those? And stress is certainly one of them. I say that the same systems that control stress control sleep. So if we are very stressed out, it's nearly impossible to be, very stressed out and getting good sleep at the same time. We simply can't do that. So we have to learn how to modulate and how to switch off. There's nobody, Carl, coming to me in the last 10 years who are just too chilled out. Every person, they're wound up, we're completely wound up. So there we go. So that's certainly a huge issue. Technology is a huge issue as well. It's a massive issue, and it's linked to so much. I mean, according to the World Health Organization now, stress is the number one health concern globally of the 21st century. So, and I do believe they're linked, and the science backs that up. There is a correlation there between social media and scrolling and everything else, and anxiety and depression. So we kind of see that.
And of course, screens, then, just to stick on the tech for a minute, is it a problem in terms of the light from the phones and the impact of the light from the phones?
I would say that's almost a secondary.
Okay.
I would say what's more disruptive is what we're doing on the screen.
Okay, so it's the content that we're looking at.
It's like the food, right? It's consumption. It's quality, content, quality, and timing.
Yeah.
How much of it are we consuming? What's the quality of that content? And when are we consuming?
Define quality content.
So the scrolling.
For some
right?
people, it's the Kardashians. For some
Yes.
people, it's the health experts. And God knows what else for other people.
Well,
Yeah.
you're right, actually, because it's what's stimulating the brain.
Okay.
Right? So what's very stimulating for you might be boring for me.
I love history, archaeology. I know it's really sad. It's a time team. Like, anyway, go on.
Yes, but do you know what? That's sufficient to keep my interest, but it's not. So I listen to the pyramids of Giza or the Roman Empire. I love all that stuff, and that will put me to sleep.
Okay.
So that's fine, but it's the switching, it's the TikTok, it's that kind of dopamine inducing stuff where we love it. I want more of it, and I'm not getting it, so I keep scrolling and flicking, and that stuff is stimulating the brain. I don't want people stop mistaking distraction and comfort for relaxation. Sitting on the couch or lying in bed scrolling is not relaxation, because if I do a relaxation exercise with you, you'll feel mentally, emotionally relaxed, So we have to give ourselves some cognitive chewing gum at night, okay? And that's what I call cognitive chewing gum, the documentary or something. Listening as well. The other crucial piece for sleep is that the eyes need to close, obviously. And brainwave activity changes. So there's lots of chemical processes that happen, but your brainwave activity needs to ramp down into alpha and theta. And that won't happen as long as there's visual stimuli. So I say to people, listening rather than scrolling in the bedroom is much more conducive.
So that's where not to plug a podcast, but that's where podcasts come into the world, because you're listening.
Yes.
And you're not flicking or scrolling or doing any of those things.
Yes, it's very different to the brain. So listen to the podcast, listen to this podcast or my podcast, and it's a win-win for me if you fall asleep. So yeah, absolutely, listening is great.
What about room temperature then? This is a very contentious issue between men and women, or between couples generally, isn't it? If you sleep together, they'll have different togs on the duvet for either side and all this stuff. What's the optimum for sleep, or does it depend on you as a person?
The optimum is 18 to 20 degrees, okay? Oh, yeah. This is the optimum in terms of room temperature. Don't forget, the temperature between the sheets will be, I hope warm, different, and people tend to run hot or run cold. But temperature is one of the key ways the body signals to the brain to increase melatonin production, okay? So our core body temperature changes over 24 hours. It's at its lowest at 5 a.m. It reaches its peak at 5 p.m. And that's one reason it's a good time to exercise. You're least likely to injure because your body temperature is up, your cardiovascular system is working well. So we need to help the body cool from 5 p.m. And the body needs to cool by 1 to 2 degrees to achieve sleep. So that's why it's really important for sleep. And it signals to the brain, it's time now for sleep.
Chat to me about light then. So particularly this time of year, parents will know. Putting your 2-year-old to bed when it's light outside is slightly more challenging. The impact of light on sleep in terms of room, how dark your room should be.
Yeah, light is incredible. I mean, it's incredible how human evolution, how we've evolved. We have receptors in the back of our retina. They're called photoganglion receptors. And we have different receptors for different light frequencies. And that tells the 24-hour timer in your brain and your circadian rhythm what time it is and thus what needs to happen. So that light is hugely important. It's known as, the main time giver or Zeitgeber, the main external influence of our circadian rhythm. So it's massive. So ideally, we want a dark room, and I know even with blackout blinds that, one little crack in the curtain is enough to wake you up an hour or 2 hours earlier, right? So it's massively important. An eye mask. Get an eye mask. It's low-hanging fruit. Easy to get, and it will improve your sleep quality and likely duration the first night you get it.
Go on.
Yep.
Wow. An eye mask. Okay. And is that something like from an historical perspective, like if you go to say in an old country house, which myself and my wife were into old country houses before we had kids, and when we had a life, we were but you would stay in them, right? And there'd be shutters,
yes,
there'd be curtains,
yes.
And I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was beyond dark.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
there's a reason for that,
there is a reason for that. If we look at shift workers, right, and that's a particular cohort that struggle. So there's a researcher called Josephine Rent, and she has said that 97% of night shift workers don't adapt. The 3% of night shift workers who do adapt are oil rig workers. And the reason they adapt is because when they go to bed, they're going to bed in a steel box with no windows and no light. And that is helping their full system adapt completely. The only group.
And does that apply to then the lead up to bedtime, that ideally your sitting room should have dimmed lights as opposed to maybe like LEDs in the ceiling that are on full blast? Like that's that hour or two before. Should that space be darker, calmer?
Yes.
To start that process of sleep prep.
So if we talk about the nervous system, right, modulating sleep, and what is the nervous system? Only our five senses, and light, touch, sound, all of those things will massively influence. So an overhead light to my brain it's midday. It's telling me it's midday, and it will shut down any melatonin production. Now, as cavemen and women, if we think about it, in the evening time, the sun was going down, we had a fire. And those lovely oranges and yellows, they don't shut down melatonin and help relax. So it's all about, and even the position of the light. The receptors in the back of the eye are in different positions to capture the sun, the horizon line. So if we have our lights below horizon line or lower, it's much better, it's much more conducive to relaxation and to sleep. So low watt, the colour, the frequency, oranges and yellows, and position in the room are all crucial.
So our parents were onto something with lamps.
Oh yeah,
lamps were a thing of the 80s, and kind of maybe this. My house are not. We're not into lamps. I don't even think we have. We've one in the bedroom, but like downstairs.
Yeah,
where I can remember being at home and like the lamp would be turned on.
Yeah,
and the big light to be turned off, and it would dim, like that.
Yeah.
It's in terms of the position of the light. It's lower, like horizon concept. It's lower in the room.
Yeah, and think about your bathroom. I mean, with modern lighting now, the last thing people do before they go to bed, go into the bathroom, and light it up like a disco to your brain is telling you, like, wake up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not good. We need those. We need more salt lamps in our lives, you know?
We stayed in a hotel about a year ago, and they had strip lighting under the cabinet. Or built into it was built into the wall. It was like almost like under the tile along the wall. So when you walked into the bathroom, the big lights weren't on, the strip lights were on.
Lovely, fantastic.
And it was like calm. It was very kind of
yeah. Well, that works. The light is crucial.
There's a business idea for you now. There we go. Bathroom lighting for sleep. I was going to ask you obviously about food then. Food and caffeine, obviously, the two things I wanted to talk about from that kind of nutritional perspective and sleep. Talk to us a little bit about caffeine first of all then. So
caffeine takes time to be processed. I mean, let's start where people start with caffeine, right? Because most people I know will drag themselves out of bed, hit the snooze button a few times. Let's not go into that. Go downstairs and drink tea or coffee to feel alive in the morning. So that clears the grogginess. So earlier I mentioned adenosine. That's grogginess.
Okay.
In the morning, that's adenosine floating around your brain.
And it's normal.
It's normal. I mean...
And it's normal to wake up a bit groggy.
Of course.
Yeah, because some people think they should leap out of bed in the morning, but you shouldn't. That doesn't work.
No, I mean, look, I can tell you now, Carl, in 10 years of working in it, I've met like two people who are wake up feeling refreshed and full of energy. You know, good. How are you after half an hour to an hour? Yep. That indicates much more, okay? So the caffeine molecule blocks the adenosine receptor in the brain. And that's why it clears the grogginess, okay? And then 8 hours later, the caffeine molecule leaves and the adenosine comes back and you get hit with the afternoon slump like a ton of bricks, right? So delay the first coffee in the morning. The fastest way to clear adenosine is natural light. That clears adenosine, it clears the grogginess. Your cutoff point then, if I have a large cup of coffee at 3 p.m., it's the equivalent of having half a large cup at 11 p.m., okay? So we wouldn't do that. So your cutoff point needs to be pretty early in the day for caffeine.
About 12.
Yeah, about 12. I would say about lunchtime for people. Now, some people are more sensitive than others. Some people have a genetic mutation where they can process caffeine quicker. In terms of the food...
before we scare all of our listeners, let's just tap into so that's not to say that you shouldn't have a cup of tea or coffee in the morning.
Oh no, Carl, I love my coffee.
Okay,
I
good, great.
love
Okay, keep
my
going then.
single origin coffee, you know.
Chat to me then about the grogginess on the coffee. So does that mean you have your coffee outside in the light to balance out the ATP?
So what we do is I would encourage people to maybe have some hot water and ginger or something like that first, okay?
Yeah.
Because we're creatures of habit. Put the kettle on,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So have a hot drink in the morning, but delay that first coffee by 60 to 90 minutes.
Okay, we have a much happier cohort of listeners now. They're much happier. They've been told they can have their coffee.
You can have your coffee. As a coffee fan, you can have your coffee.
Okay, food.
So food, I mean, look, it's like anything else. The foods that tend to be good for blood pressure and cholesterol and brain health and heart health are good for sleep. Guess what? They're good for sleep as well. So again, avoiding the processed foods, avoiding the high fructose sugar, all that, those type of foods have been shown they will increase your cortisol. Eating certain foods will lower cortisol. Are very beneficial. Foods that contain magnesium, which helps with the nervous system, and calcium and omega-3 fatty acids. So your nuts, your seeds, your leafy greens, your berries, your cereals, so your porridge contain folates, B1, which is beneficial for sleep as well. So the quality of your food, that's what when I talk about quality. So the high nutrient, the nutrient-dense food, very good for sleep. When you're eating, massively important as well. So we need to leave 2 to 3 hours.
Yep.
Now look at some people are leading very busy lives. They're training late, they're working hard, they're looking after children, and they're like, well, you know, when is the cut-off point? We have to be realistic as well, you know. So I would sort of say to people, you know, as long as you're not throwing a huge volume of food into your body, high-fat foods that are difficult to process, you know, it's really beneficial. It can really be beneficial for your sleep, because one of the things that food does is it activates that rest and digest, that parasympathetic system to calm down. Now, as long as you're not eating a curry cheese chips at 11 o'clock at night, you know, some food.
And the calm down, and does that apply then if you match that with your low light, as opposed to the kitchen being like the Aviva Stadium?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so that kind of atmospheric, how you eat is really important in terms of the evening time eating.
Yeah, I mean, how we eat, it's so much more than just than calories. Like, you know, if we can spend time with our partners, like chemically in the body. I mean, how we are set up as humans is we have the cortisol and the adrenaline and all that stuff earlier in the day to get things done, to find calories, to build shelter, to survive. Later in the day, our serotonin levels are much higher. Serotonin is about being happy in the moment right now. Serotonin is a precursor to the sleep hormone melatonin. That's the other thing that light does, is increases serotonin. Other activities that increase serotonin: eating, hot shower, deep breathing, cuddling on the couch with your partner or a pet. Or your partner could be your pet. so like, and I think often, Carl, a lot of like health messages are kind of like, you know, scary or to people, or like, dude, it's like sacrifice and pain. And I'm telling you now, like, if you want to improve your sleep, do all these lovely cuddly things. You know, do some yoga, do some stretching, have a sauna, have a hot shower, cuddle your partner.
Sauna's the job now. We've got into the outdoor one in West Cork now, so I try and go every kind of second week if I'm around or if I'm down there on the beach. The job.
Oh yeah,
an hour in the sauna, do you come out like a new person?
It's
I'm blown away by the benefit of it, and not on a. That's not even on a kind of a physical level, but just mentally. It's an hour of a break from the world, and you really sleep well that night. It's fantastic.
You do. It's conducive to the temperature thing.
Yeah.
It causes a rebound cooling in the body, and that will actually help sleep.
The Atlantic in December absolutely cools you down. I can promise you that. And we've done midnight or nighttime ones with a full moon and in the middle of like winter, and it's freezing. But anyway, there we go. I'm going to finish on this one, which is that acronym that you have, your sleep acronym.
Yes.
We're going to finish with that because there are 5 really good points that I think people can take away from the app.
Okay, so the S in sleep is stress, obviously. So really important that people get a handle on stress. Keep it in the day. I mean, look, everything you talk about and I often talk about is it will always come back to your daily habit and keeping it in the day and not overthinking anything. But we need strategies for our stress. So things like exercise, the cold water, or the sauna, all those type of things really beneficial for your stress level. So get a handle on your stress. Light. Okay, so really important that you are getting outside, getting lots of light, controlling the light inputs early in the day and later in the day. That's where the eye mask comes in. It's not a blindfold, it's an eye mask. Okay.
Actually, I was asking, I meant to ask that earlier. Any good ones that you recommend? Is that a really weird question? This is what, you're the man to ask.
I think there's one called, it's a polar bear one, and that one I really like because it's nice and soft. Okay. A bit like the pillows. It kind of comes down to personal preference.
That's the next business idea for your website. After your podcast goes to number one, jump onto those because it's a really interesting concept. Just darkens things out. So anyway,
absolutely. So exercise. Exercise, it's just so good for us. It has been absolutely proven to lower cortisol levels. It's been shown to lower the amount of wake episodes. It's been shown to keep you in deeper sleep longer. People are obsessed with deep sleep. So exercise is massively, massively beneficial to sleep on every level. And the second E, electronics. So we have to get off the scrolling. Scrolling is detrimental to the brain. I've done a full episode on my podcast on technology and sleep. It has been proven by multiple studies to lower attention span, to change the volume of grey matter in your brain. It's been shown also to lower our ability to deal with pain and difficulty in life. So scrolling is hugely detrimental to our health and to our sleep. So the electronics, set what I call the reverse snooze button. So if I have to get up at 6 a.m, need to be asleep at 10:30, need to be off the tech at 9, and so set your alarm. Now people want their me time in the evening, and that's fine, but have a cut-off point for the electronics. And P is patience and practice. Like we said, it doesn't happen, excuse the pun, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks, it takes months, it takes patience, it takes practice. And people talk about, I have a racing mind, like it's not part of them. So you're the one to retrain your mind. And you can, and I can assure people, I've worked with people who maybe get as little as 1 to 2 hours per night for decades, and if they've implemented strategies, their sleep can and will improve.
Tom Coleman, it's been great crack. I love when I bring out experts are fabulous because they're just so good at what they do. They live for their topic, which is brilliant. If people want to find you online and listen to the podcast, just where can they get hold of you?
Sure. People can find me online, www.tomcoleman.ie. That's my website. My Instagram, tomcoleman.ie. And you can drop me a message there or the website, or you can listen to my podcast, the Sleep and Health Podcast, available across all networks.
Mahan Farr, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health. We're going to sleep well over the course of the next week. Try those tips and implement them. And if they don't happen in a week, they will happen over the course of time. As ever, you know where we are, at Carl Henry PT on Instagram, Real Health on the Irish Independent website. We'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.